On today's show, I'll wrap up the Raptors preseason with NBA analyst Noor Zainab, and we'll chat our expectations for the team heading into the season next week. Later, I'll give you my picks for the San Diego Open quarterfinals, which feature some players that are trying to make the WTA finals at the end of the month. Finally, I have a special announcement at the end of today's episode. Court's in session. Hey everybody, welcome to a special episode of Court Time with Crina Mustafa. That's me, and today I'm joined by our NBA analyst Noor Zainab with a very special segment that I think you guys are going to enjoy. It's called the weekly wrap-up. Yes, it's a pun on the Raptors and wrapping up the week that was in the Raptors. I think you're going to see it very often throughout the NBA season. Ooh. And I'm so excited because we're going to be talking about today the Raptors preseason, kind of how that went, our expectations for the team going into the season. We'll be wrapping up the Raptors preseason. We'll see how much I can get away with that pun. But my first question for you is, so in the preseason, the Raptors did split their 4 games so far, 2-2. They started off with 2 wins, a big one against the Utah Jazz, then that thrilling overtime win over the Boston Celtics. Yep. Then they proceeded to drop 2 in a row against the Rockets and the Bulls. Yeah. So my question for you is, do you take preseason seriously? How seriously should we be taking these wins?
I think it's fun to watch these games because you're just on the cusp of the season starting, so it's something to look forward to. You haven't watched ball for 3 months now, so it's our teams are back together. It's a new lineup, new gelling, all that situation. But I think for me, preseason is more so based. It's more so catered towards the coaches as well as the bench guys, because at this point they're trying to figure out who they want to be on the lineup, who they want to be, the third stringers, the bench guys. They're trying to figure out who to cut, who to keep, and it ends up being a really good spot for them because now these guys can go out there and they can showcase their talent in front of a national media, showcase what they've got. So even if their own team doesn't want them, they can maybe sign elsewhere, right? So I think it's really fun. It's super cool. It's such a great time to come together right before the NBA season starts. But I wouldn't look at it as a way to analyze the season coming forward with our team, just because, like I said, it's more so for the coaches to experiment with lineups. It's more so for the new players to figure out whether or not they're going to make the team or anything like that. And I think it's just take it as with a grain of salt. Have fun with it. We saw that lineup with the Raptors. I can't even remember. I don't want to relive it again. But I'm stuff like that won't make the regular season. But that's why you have to have the preseason to see the monster shit on the screen and know what to do and what not to do.
I know that lineup where we had nobody under 6'9".
I hope it was erased right as it was on the court. You're nope, not gonna see the light of day. Not happening.
The half court offense was looking pretty rough with that lineup. But I like what you said about it kind of being experimenting with the coaches and the players, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't. Yeah. With the Raptors preseason, which is a player that you've been impressed with so far?
Obviously, we have the same core, right? So you've got the same guys. We've got Pascal, Scotty, Freddie, OG, Gary, Kem. But I think for me, I really look at the guys that are fighting for a spot right now, and that would be Delano Banton. He is getting a lot more minutes just because Malachi got injured when they were playing in Edmonton. So this, it sucks, but it was a bittersweet thing for Banton because he was able to get more minutes that way. And he showed out. We were able to see Scotty kind of handle the ball more, and because he was able to handle the ball more, we got to see Delano Banton off ball. And Delano Banton off ball, he's a tall guy. He knows how to run the paint. He knows how to make those shots. The only thing with him, I'd say, is he needs to obviously work on that 3-point and maybe a little bit of defense, because Nick has said before, if you can't play defense, you're not playing on the team. So I think if he's able to get that going, it would be a no-brainer to bring him on for extended minutes once the season gets started.
Yeah, I think.
How about you?
Yeah, there's always a lot of expectations around Delano as well. Being that combo guard, he's a little bit more unique than some of the other players on the team. So yeah, I'm very interested. I want him to succeed because he's such a fun player. For me, it's Gary Trent Jr. I know there's a lot of questions about whether he should be in the starting lineup or scoring off the bench. Right. And I know because Nick Nurse said something about, he's earned his spot in the starting lineup now. He was really good in preseason.
100%.
When he shoots the ball, you just know it's going in. It's going in.
It's going in.
But honestly, if we had him leading the bench, I wouldn't be too upset with that because you need somebody who can consistently get you buckets when your starters are sitting. So I think even if he stays in the bench, I think that's going to be a good fit for the Raptors anyway. So I'm just excited. I'm hoping we don't see like a very large shooting regression because that would hurt our offense. But I think he's been a really positive light.
I think so too. And I think that's why I struggle because I'm like, we do lack shooting. So do you want to have that prolific? Because he is our prolific shooter. You want to give somebody a ball that's going to get you buckets. It's going to be Gary Trent on this squad, right? So I'm like, do you want to lead off with that, or do you want him to kind of lead the bench because there's no really shooting off the bench either with Malachi gone now? And I think it kind of brings us back to the convo when Norman Powell was here, remember? And we used to be like, do we want Norman Powell to start or come off the bench? And it was that question situation where it was like, do you want to have more scoring off the bench, or do you want to have it implemented once the starters get going? But I think it's going to be based off matchups, right? Like depending on who you're playing, what everything looks like. If you could use Gary Trent in a less defensive role, then 100% get him off the bench. You know, like it's going to be no problem at all. But if you need shooting, they're going to need to pull that boy.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the matchup thing. It's definitely going to be there. And you mentioned like the injury with Malachi. It feels like it's only preseason, and we've gotten hit with a lot of injuries. Like even Chris Boucher now, and Otto's been out. And that affects like the lineup, like who's going to make it. So are you worried about these injuries and what that means for who eventually does make the team?
I think you're always worried about injuries in the NBA, right? In any sport, really. And I'm like, science has come so far. Can't we just figure out a way to not have injuries, you know, on these teams now? But I think like what sucks with this is, like you said, that we're not able to see our team at full strength. We don't know what they're able to do, what each lineups looks like, who's able to play better with who. Like that's kind of what you struggle with. But thankfully, I think Boucher, like he's earned a spot on the team, so he's gonna be here for a while. It sucks that he's gonna be missing the Montreal game, you know, his hometown and everything. So I feel for him there. But and same thing with Otto Porter. Like we haven't seen him play at all yet because he's been injured since September, right? So, but I think because they're both guaranteed guys, like they're on our roster, we will be able to see what everything looks like. And in a way, like it kind of gives the bench guys more time on the court because Boucher and Otto aren't able to make it. Had this been like someone like Malachi, because he's not able to play, I'm a little bit upset for him just because he needed that time. Like he needed to showcase to Nick Nurse that he should be able to play and be on the court because he got bench rode all last year. So I think, and especially because we need the depth. Like this is the only important time to figure out what kind of depth you have. And if you're not happy with it, you got to make a mid-season trade. So in that way, I think it for sure sucks. Thankfully, the season is next week, and hopefully the injuries aren't anything serious. So we're able to really see, at least for a full week, what this team is about, what everybody's role is, how well they all play together, and what needs to change and what needs to stay. But yeah, injuries are just... what do you do about
the worst,
man? Yeah, like, you know what I mean? And they take away the fun of the game, and you feel for them, but you also feel selfish because you want them to see them play, you know? Like, it's a very weird transaction between a fan and a player, I feel like, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like, I just want the Raptors to be healthy. I mean, I want all teams to be healthy. It's just, like you said before, injuries just suck in general. And I know we've talked a lot about the bench now, so let's move on to the starters, because I know there's a couple of worries about them, because there were a couple of wins. There was a win in the preseason against the Celtics in the overtime, where the starters didn't win that game. The bench won that game, and the reserves won that game. Are you worried about this core at all? Because on paper, they seem like they work really well, but then when they struggle, it's really obvious.
You know what? I have such a concerning relationship with this. I want to say, hey, I'm saying love and concern with this team, just because last year, right? Last year when Lowry left, like we kind of lost the team as it was. We just got Scotty on, so that was like a little bright light for everything else. But I honestly had the Raptors like barely making the play-in last season, and then they ended up finishing 5th. Like that was insane. So I think it's like the way that the roster looks to me right now, I'm having trouble trying to see. Like, I think we're going to make a far push. Like, we're going to win games the way that we do. But the only thing that concerns me, and I think this concerns like anybody who's not a Raptor fan, because Raptor fans seem to think we're going to win everything this year. But I'm just like, we don't have that one guy. And that's key. Like, obviously that means we're not going to win a championship this year. Obviously that means that there's no one out there that we can go and acquire and everything like that too. But I think for me, it's just it's just a matter of it's a lack of shooting, really. Like, I think we are able to be a defensive-minded team when we want to be. A couple years ago, this was an all NBA defensive roster. Last year, it was almost as if am I in the mood to defend today or am I not? Like, that was kind of what they were going at. So you know they know how to defend. It's just a matter of how much effort are you going to bring on the court? But I think they can make it a game as long as they have their defense. But do they have the shooting to get the win?
Yeah, exactly.
That's my concern.
Yeah, and you know, I was at that Bulls game in the preseason, and they started off with the starters, of course, because you have to start with the starters. And everything was going pretty well for the majority of the game. Like, shots were going in, but I remember there was a point in the fourth quarter where Pascal or Scotty, I forget who it was, but the ball just was not going in. Nick pulled the starters, and it was just basically the reserves for the last like 5-6 minutes of the game, and so we ended up losing. But it was just kind of that once their shots are not going in,
they give up.
Everything falls apart, and this is what happens. And even though it's just preseason, there wasn't really that sense of urgency, but at the same time, it's like once this happens in the regular season, what are you gonna do? Like Fred, when he's shooting lights out, like it's over. Like it's amazing. But when he's having an off night, things are kind of like, ugh. So there's no other way to describe it.
No, it's true.
And that's why we talked about Gary Trent earlier. We're like, does he go in the starting lineup or does he go on the bench? Like, if the starters are having a bad day, then Gary's going to be the one that has to like lift you up. So it's just a lot of questions surrounding the core, of course. But again, like I said, like on paper, they work really well. I mean, even not on paper, like we've seen them work really well together. I think OG is a big question mark as well this season. If he can get going, because there's some, I really want to see that handle of his improve, because sometimes it's a little stressful.
It's very much like a baby deer with the ball, you know, like he can't really get a hold of the ball. It's maybe 2 dribbles. It's like me dribbling, honestly. It's like 2 dribbles and it's the ball completely gone somewhere else. No, I completely agree. And I think what's crazy too is the East got so much better. So how, like, obviously we have the same core. You've got the same guys that we mentioned before. You actually added Otto Porter on. I'm curious to see how this is going to mesh with the team that we have right now, but it's obviously not going to move the needle in the end, right? So last year we did move up till 5th, but we did have a little bit of luck because Bulls fell off. Nets were just a cluster mess. I don't want to get into it. Screw the Nets. You know, Boston only picked it up at All-Star. Miami and Bucks were the only like consistent team throughout the whole thing. But I think now the way that the East, like obviously these teams like Atlanta, Cleveland will take a little bit to work their kinks out and work together. But ultimately down the line, they have the talent to get better than us. So my concern would be, are you better than these teams in this offseason? And the answer is you did not get any better. So if there's no offseason trades this year, I'm a little bit worried about where this team might go, because we keep saying, we have the same core, same everything, but we fail to realize that the East is getting so much better, and there's so much parity now between that 3rd to 8th spot where anything can happen and anyone can make it.
Yeah, and I think on ESPN, Wendy was saying that the Raptors are primed to make a mid-season trade. But it's about what are you going to do until then, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about, for me, it's all about execution. Like if our team is executing at the end of the day, then they can look like the best team out there. But if they're not, that's where the problem is. So we'll see how it goes going into the season. I'm excited for the Raptors. Like I'm just going to try to enjoy it. Like I know you will too. We
already got championship 3 years ago. It's all good. It's 30 teams in the NBA. You're fine.
The years are kind of racking up now.
But you're on 3rd year too.
It'll be okay. But thank you for joining me here today. And guys, make sure to be following her on socials. Tap into all the NBA coverage that Noor is going to be doing for this upcoming NBA season. I know she's got a lot of exciting things planned. I'm excited. So make sure you're following her. And don't go anywhere, because I've got some tennis picks for you coming up next. The San Diego Open is the last WTA 500 event of the season, and the quarterfinals are set to take place on Friday afternoon. The show is called Court Time, so let's have some fun with this. Donna Vekic versus Aryna Sabalenka. Vekic is playing better tennis lately, but Sabalenka is hoping to qualify for the WTA finals. Judge rules, Sabalenka in 3 sets. Jessica Pegula versus Madison Keys. Pegula has been awesome all summer, and she just qualified for the WTA finals, so this one is pretty easy. Judge rules, Pegula in straight sets. Iga Swiatek versus Coco Gauff. It's a rematch of the 2022 French Open final, and Coco's matured a lot since then, and Iga's struggled quite a bit. Judge rules, Gauff in 3 sets. Finally, to cap off the day, Danielle versus Paula Bedosa. This one is tough because both players have similar playing styles as baseline hitters. Because Bedosa is trying to qualify for the WTA finals and is a lot closer, I'll give the edge to her. Judge rules, Bedosa in 3 sets. If you want to catch these WTA matches, I've got a great resource for you. The Parleh is launching our women's sports newsletter Friday, October 14th. The program has the who, why, and how to watch women's sports every weekend right to your inbox. You can follow the program on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok to stay up to date on all things women's sports. Thanks for tuning in to Court Time with Crina Mustafa. See you next Friday.